Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar wants state institutions free from political interference. On the 49th anniversary of Republic Day, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar called for urgent reform to strengthen Trinidad and Tobago's democracy, noting that the foundation of the Republic remains flawed. Mrs. Bissessar said, quote, "Since 1976, our Republican Constitution has concentrated executive power in the office of the Prime Minister and weakened so-called independent institutions, which were often appointed by the President beholden to the ruling party," Mrs. Persad-Bissessar said. She argued that these flaws have undermined checks and balances, limiting fairness and accountability in governance. Tracing past reform efforts, the Prime Minister highlighted that the UNC government's introduction of the Freedom of Information Act, the Judicial Review Act, and the Equal Opportunities Act between 1995 and 2000. Mrs. Bissessar also pointed to her administration's modernization of the Trinidad and Tobago Parliament during her first tenure, including the introduction of the Prime Minister's questions, proportional representation in local governance, and landmark procurement reform, which PNM slashed the teeth out of. Each initiative, she said, aimed to ensure democracy genuinely empowers all citizens. Mrs. Persad-Bissessar stated, quote, "Today, we must renew the independence of our state institutions to drive fairness, accountability, and progress, so that future generations inherit a republic defined by freedom and equal opportunity for all." Now, here's the thing. I can't lie. It sounds like a Bazio Pandey speech, which we'll get to. It sounds like it. But if Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar is speaking about political interference in Trinidad and Tobago's democracy, where power is just simply concentrated to the office of the Prime Minister, which is true, we saw where King Rowley was able to literally shut everything down in this country for COVID-19 and almost abuse the office of the Prime Minister and abuse his power. As far as I would say, I protest about it. I walk the streets about it. I had the right to say that. I have the right to feel that way. But it seems so, even with the political interference in the Police Service Commission, in the appointment of a commissioner of police, right? With the merit list, a Prime Minister was able to influence a president as to who to appoint as commissioner of police. He could have influenced, and he did influence, the firing of a commissioner of police. And it should not be that way. Not only that, but procurement. There's only one administration that went to the parliament to literally, quote unquote, slash the teeth out of procurement legislation to say government could spend money with government without a procurement regulator oversight or telling us how we should spend and why, or looking at it, basically, right? We saw that happen. We saw where government literally took up and made a decision to shut down a state entity like Petrotrin simply because they told you that it's not making money. Yet reports came out by independent, I'll say, auditors or persons that came to look at why Petrotrin, the issues with Petrotrin, and they told us, a committee told us, that it didn't need shutting down, it just needed restructuring. So if it needed restructuring, the government restructuring was to shut it down and have a company emerge that almost do the same thing. But if it is Kamla Persad-Bissessar speaking about a reform for Trinidad and Tobago's constitution, then my mind goes back to this clip.
I think the president should be elected by the people on the basis of one man, one vote. And having elected the president on the basis of one man, one vote, the president must be entitled to choose his cabinet from the most intelligent people in the country, not necessarily those who have been elected. Because you see, an election does not necessarily throw up intelligent people. Often it throws up a man with a big mouth. I thought you all were going to say yes, one is speaking to me. But that's all right. So that if our country is to be run properly, we must use our best brains. How are we going to use our best brains unless a president elected by and responsible to the people, see the connection, has the power to nominate, select his cabinet. Having selected his cabinet, the president now formulates his policy for the year. But in order to implement that policy, he must go to the parliament for monies to implement. But the parliament he's going to is not the present one we have. The parliament he's going to is a unicameral government. That has also been said here. We are too small a country to have a Senate. And in fact, the Senate was only introduced into the Constitution because we were following the British pattern. They had a House of Lords, so we must have a mini House of Lords. They serve no purpose, really. If the senators want to represent the people, let them be responsible to the people. To whom are they responsible right now? To the president? No. Those who are nominated by the PNM are responsible to the PNM. And those who are appointed by the PP government are responsible to the PP government. So already there is a duplication. The 9 others that are appointed by the president is responsible to nobody. So we do not need a bicameral government, we need a unicameral government. But a unicameral government of a different kind. A unicameral government that is made up of about 100 members. Already we have 74. So 100 members, but 100 members elected on the basis of proportional representation. Now I've heard a friend of mine across there talk about the complications of proportional representation. I suggest the simplest form of proportional representation, which is if we have an electorate of 800,000 persons and a parliament of 100, then any person getting 8,000 or more votes is entitled to a seat in the parliament. It's the simplest form of PR. We don't have to go through the second preference votes and all that sort of thing. What is going to be the result of this? What is going to happen? That kind of voting is going to break the historical pattern of racial voting that has plagued this country for decades. Come the next election, if the elections are held under the present Constitution, we shall repeat what we have been doing for 50 years. That is to say, one group will be in the opposition and the next racial group will be in the parliament and so on. But if we go on the basis of proportional representation, then people will elect members on the basis of their economic as opposed to their racial interests. The farmers will get together and say, we are going to put a member in parliament because whenever we elect anybody else, they don't represent us, but we are going to put farmers, a group of farmers are going to get together and they are going to put 4 or 5 farmers in the parliament. The taxi drivers, the business community, even the churches if they wish. Whoever in a multicultural, highly plural society that we have, it is the only way in which there will be the broadest spectrum of people taking part in the political decision-making process, which is what we are saying over and over. We want the people to participate. But where are the people? Where are they?